The medieval city of Salisbury, with its historic cathedral, lies deep in the English countryside. It seemed like an unlikely place for a chemical weapon attack until March.
A former Russian spy is in a critical condition.
Police say they believe a nerve agent was used. Britain will act without hesitation.
Former double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia were found unconscious on a park bench in the city centre. They'd been exposed to the nerve agent Novichok, which had been smeared on Mr Skripal's front door. The first police officer on the scene also became critically ill. All three survived, but just months later, two more people were inadvertently poisoned. Dawn Sturgis and Charlie Rowley were exposed to Novichok after finding a discarded perfume bottle containing the nerve agent. Sturgis later died.
We believe the two people originally who became unwell were targeted specifically. Our role now, of course, is to establish who is behind this and why they carried out this act.
Sergei Skripal is a retired Russian spy turned double agent. He was jailed in 2006 after Moscow discovered he'd been leaking information to the UK's Secret Intelligence Service. He was released in a prisoner swap 4 years later and has been living in Salisbury since.
Based on the positive identification of this chemical agent, our knowledge that Russia has previously produced this agent and would still be capable of doing so, Russia's record of conducting state-sponsored assassinations, and our assessment that Russia views some defectors as legitimate targets for assassinations, the government has concluded that it is highly likely that Russia was responsible for the act against Sergei and Yulia Skripal.
But Moscow maintains it wasn't behind the attack and says the accusations are part of a wider anti-Russia campaign being waged by Europe.
As for the tragedy of Skripal and his daughter, Russia doesn't have the means to carry it out. We destroyed all our chemical weapons, unlike some of our partners who promised to do so, but have not yet fulfilled their obligations.
UK authorities released security footage of two Russian nationals believed to have carried out the attack. They were filmed visiting Salisbury at the time of the poisoning. Police believe they are officers with Russia's military intelligence unit known as the GRU, but the men claim they were just tourists who'd long been wanting to visit Salisbury.
There is a very famous cathedral, Salisbury Cathedral. It is famous not only in all of Europe, but all over the world. It is also known for its 123-metre spire and its clock, the oldest in the world and still working.
The UK government called the explanation an insult to the British public's intelligence. It expelled 23 Russian diplomats, and in response, Russia also deported 23 British diplomats, further straining an already tense relationship.
Relations are in the deep freeze, and they've been there for a while. I would just say that the chances are now of them becoming unfrozen are much lower, because this is seen as a very serious assault on the United Kingdom. It's not viewed just as an attack on Mr Skripal and his daughter, but the use of a chemical weapon on UK territory was taken here, I think, as a real challenge to the UK's security.
Sergei Skripal was supposedly living in retirement in Salisbury, yet he was still targeted. What does that say about the attitude Russia takes towards people it thinks are traitors or a threat?
The Russian state has a very long arm when it wants to have it. And in the case of Mr Skripal, it's a signal perhaps to others, don't engage in what he was doing. And certainly to people in his category, it's a sign that you never really get away.
What does it tell us about Russia that they were prepared to use a nerve agent?
Some of us believe, in fact, that the Russians were looking really to test what the UK's reaction would be, what the condition of the Western alliances, NATO, for example, and the European Union. And on this occasion, I think there was actually a very strong response. So I give credit, in fact, to the Foreign Office and the British government, because I think they acted very promptly, with determination, and they got the necessary support.
Back in Salisbury, the poisoning has taken its toll on the city. This is Salisbury Cathedral, the site the suspects said they came to visit. The problem is their trip here scared off other tourists. After the poisonings, visitor numbers to the city dropped significantly, including here at the cathedral. About 250,000 people visit the cathedral annually, but this year numbers are down 16%.
On a practical level, the town was really quite seriously affected by it, because whole areas of the town were closed off. We couldn't go to certain shops and houses and parks. Businesses were shut. There was a big effect on visitor numbers to this town, which traditionally relies on visitors and tourism. And it was, it was very unnerving in its way to see security personnel right in the middle of your own hometown.
With shoppers staying away from Salisbury, the local economy was put under pressure.
It became very worrying. We just didn't have any customers. And we were just into new season, spring, summer, and we weren't selling very much. And my business suffered immensely through that. And we just could do nothing. We just had to sit tight and see what happened.
Salisbury Cathedral's annual Light Festival, called From Darkness to Light, takes on more meaning for locals this year. But those who live in the city are longing for the day when their home is once again famous for its cathedral, rather than an espionage murder plot reminiscent of a Cold War thriller. Sarah Morris, TRT World, Salisbury.